You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shemaiah Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shemaiah Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today, just like any other time, man, we have a true honor talking to our special guest today. Today, we're going to talk to Jeff Patterson, and we're going to learn everything about balancing your body and mind, the Yielding Warrior's Guide to Meditative Practices. He has an amazing website that you can check out, theyieldingwarrior.com. Before we get into everything that he does with his programs, we're going to first learn more about him. So first, thank you for your time, man. How you doing today, man?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me here.
I appreciate you just being on. So kind of tell the audience a little bit about your professional career and what started the process of the Yielding Warrior.
Yeah, so I've been running a meditation and martial arts school here in Portland, Oregon now for a little over 30 years. And you know, through the years, it's always been fun training people in the external arts. You know, they'll go out and do a competition or whatever and do well. And that's always rewarding. But with the meditative arts, you know, I've had over 26,000 students come through the academy, and you get people coming in here that are dealing with stress disorders and illnesses and physical issues that they need to overcome. And you know, seeing those transformations is what is really sparked my interest and given me the energy to, you know, write my last couple books and create my online program. It's seeing those life transformations that really kind of hit home for me. And so that's been my main focus, is trying to show people how to integrate meditative practice into their life and reap the benefits from it. And so with that, I teach them how to build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts, because, you know, there's so many different directions with meditation. You can do meditation to improve your performance and athletic ability. You can do the therapeutic side of the training, which is good for recovering from injuries and improving our just our physical well-being. There's the medical side of the training, which, you know, all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory. And so that's a very deep path to follow. Then you have the philosophical approach to the practice. And then lastly, the spiritual approach to the practice. And so really, no matter kind of what your interests are, there's a path for you to follow and a way you can benefit from integrating meditation into your life.
With your 36 years of experience in meditation and martial arts, you being able to cross paths with thousands of students, what has been maybe like a common thread that you kind of see in maybe each student that becomes successful going through your programs?
You know, as a teacher, that's one of the things that I've wrestled with through the years, is trying to find the best way to help people be successful with the practice. And I've got three things that I like to have people think about and really spend some time with when they're looking to get into a practice, or even maybe just enhance a practice that they may already have. And first is, why are you being drawn to the practice? You know, do you want to stay healthy into your later years to watch your grandkids grow up? Or are you possibly dealing with a stress disorder, have anxiety or panic attacks, or maybe an illness that you're working through? Or are you an athlete who wants to improve your performance? And not just think about the surface level why, but think about all of the ways in which your life will change if you make that adjustment and make that change in your life. And then also think about all the things that are going to happen if you don't make that adjustment and you keep suffering through the anxiety, or you keep living an unhealthy life, or whatever that is. Because if you have that fuel and a real reason to do the practice, that's going to give you the energy to make that practice happen every day, you know. And that's the hardest thing for people to do, is to make it a daily habit, make it a reason why they get up every morning and practice a little bit, you know. And It's a mindset shift that we need to have, where we don't want to look at this like a chore we have to do every day. We want to look at it as something, hey, we get to do this practice. We're lucky to have this in our life because it's giving us so many positive outcomes from the practice. And when we can make that mindset shift, that's where we really start reaping all the benefits. The second thing to be aware of, and we kind of touched on this already, is the importance of consistency. Meditation's meant to be a way of life and not something we do as a hobby once in a while. And if you look at it as a life practice, now you start having that consistent daily ritual practice that you do every day. You integrate active practices throughout the day to make it more of a kind of a way that we're living through the day, because it's kind of silly to think that, you could go meditate every morning and be in a peaceful place. And then for the rest of your day, you're stressed and you're dealing with problems and anxiety and everything else. And so we want to integrate these practices into everything we do. And through this consistency, we develop a discipline and integrity and perseverance and many different qualities from the practice that feed over into everything we do in life and our relationships and our work and our hobbies. And so you'll see many ways in how this can influence everything you do. And lastly, the third thing that you want to understand when taking on the practice is you have to find yourself a good guide, because meditation is an extremely deep practice. I've been studying it for 36 years and I'm still just a student. I'm learning all the time, and it's, I've had students come into the academy who have been self-taught and they've spent 10, 15, even 20 years trying to figure out the meditative practice and doing certain things. And they'll come in here and see a student who's been under guidance for only 12 months, who's a lot further along in their development than they are after 10 or 15 years. And it's kind of discouraging when they see that sometimes. And so, life is short, your time is valuable. Finding a good guide to help you get the most out of your efforts is really pretty easy to do. And it's a big payout on the other side. And for those people that listen to this and they integrate a ritual practice every day, some active practices throughout the day, and some philosophical practices, and they keep that up every day for a year, I bet 97, 98% of those people will do this for the rest of their life, because they'll see so many benefits from the practice that there's no reason why they would ever want to stop. It's just the ones that don't make it there, that quit along the way, that don't have the discipline and don't take the time to develop that practice. Those are the ones that I'm trying to reach and trying to help and give the tools to get past that first step.
Yeah, that's Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Jeff Patterson. Go to his website, theyieldingwarrior.com. You mentioned 3 types of meditation: ritual, active, and philosophical. For our audience, for those who may be new to all of this, kind of break it down, what the difference is between those 3 types and how they maybe can work, maybe combine together or separately to meet their goals.
Yeah, so it's something that you combine. It's a holistic approach. And the ritual is kind of like your core practice. It's something that you set aside a little bit of time every day. And maybe you do a sitting meditation or some standing meditation or some movement practices like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, something where you have that core practice every day. And then active practices are things that you can do throughout the day, even when you're walking down the street or standing in a line at the grocery store. And they can be as simple as counting out 10 breaths or maybe doing some spinal rotations or a simple movement practice. And they're just a way to help us stay into that state of awareness and that being present in the body and in our mind, so we can approach the day from a balanced point of view. And that's kind of the ultimate goal in meditation is, we don't want to get too far down these distracting paths, because when we start responding, when we're distracted, not usually too much good comes from that. And so we want to try to stay balanced and centered. And so these active practices help us kind of live that throughout the day. And then lastly, we have our philosophical practices, which are great for changing our perspective and keeping us focused. And we can integrate those in both our active practices as well as our ritual practices. But using all of these together, now we have the tools to create that evolving life practice, which is what we're looking to do.
For those who are listening to this episode today and they visit the website, theyieldingwarrior.com, like I said, not too long ago, you have countless students around the globe who has been through your program as the instructor of the program. If someone is interested today to say, you know what, this is something I really want to give a shot, what's the best way that they can start the process to see if this place where you are is a good opportunity for them to take advantage of?
Well, right now I'm offering a free copy of my book. You could go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book, and it'll take you to a page where you can order a free copy, just pay for shipping and handling. And that will give you some idea on my philosophy and kind of how to start a practice. But also on that same website, just theyieldingwarrior.com, you could get introduced to our online program that teaches you how to integrate these practices and start building an evolving life practice with movement practices, sitting practices, standing meditation, integrating the philosophy. And we have a 2-week trial up there. We also have a teacher training program up there if you're looking to integrate another pillar into what you're doing. And so there's a lot of information up there to check out.
I remember in the conversation you talked about consistency. And I think that is very important because whatever you're going to be consistent at, whether it's good or bad, it's going to show up in your life. You personally, as a professional, being able to understand this importance, how has that affect in a good way how you run your business, but also making an impact in your community?
For my personal life and being a teacher, one of the most rewarding things that I have is to be able to help somebody see something new or find something in their life that changes their life for the better. And the more that I can do that, the more rewarding it is for me. And so for me, the consistency is just become kind of a way of life because every day I'm trying to learn more, to be a better teacher, to be a better practitioner, to understand these things at a deeper level because one, it's kind of fun for me. So I guess I'm a little selfish there in that, I like to do it for myself, but having those tools to help people through things and see these transformations is extremely rewarding. And so that's one of the things for me that really helps with consistency, and a lot of people talk about taking on the practice, and it's often called discipline. And we do that for a reason. But what happens is people will say, yeah, I'm gonna commit to this and I'm gonna do this practice. But then tomorrow, they have to take their dog for a walk or, their phone rings and somebody calls and it interrupts their practice. Or, I've heard so many excuses. I could go on for days with them. But when you're making a commitment, you're making a commitment because you understand from the beginning that life is going to happen and there's going to be these excuses that are going to happen every day. But the reason we make a commitment is that we understand that and we're going to make this happen even with life happening, and for me, I've got a lot going on. I've got my academy, I've got my online business, I've got a real estate business that I'm running with my wife. I could get caught up in that stuff and, work 100 more hours a week if I wanted to. But every single day, I do my morning meditation ritual without fail. I have not missed one day since I had my hip surgery 5 years ago, and I don't plan on missing a day anytime soon. We all have the time. You know, the Dalai Lama once said that everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. And I love that saying, and that, you know, the world would be such a better place if everybody spent a little bit of time just staying connected to who you are. You know, we all go through life with these distractions. We've got our cell phones, we've got our jobs, we've got people that we're interacting with. And a lot of times we get so caught up in the to-dos that we're kind of forced to wear a mask in our day-to-day lives. You know, we're trying to maybe hide a little bit of how we really feel because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or maybe we got to stay a little bit kind of protected if somebody says something and not let ourselves get emotional or whatever it is. And we get so caught up in wearing these masks that sometimes we go to look at ourselves in the mirror and we're still wearing that mask. And meditation is one of those things that helps us take those masks and those barriers away and really stay connected to who we are. And when we can start learning how to live that way and keep that connection, there's so much more joy, I think, that we can find in our life when we're living that way.
It makes me think of, like, in life where you get something that's valuable. Well, it's one thing to have that new shiny opportunity, you know, whether it's a car or whatever, a job, a business. But man, the real life comes around the corner, and that new job, new car, new business comes with maintenance and things that you must attend to and take care of and maintain. The less you maintain it, the worse the experience is going to be. So for you as a professional, especially as a business owner, having multiple, opportunities for yourself, what's some of the golden nuggets of wisdom that you learned along the way of just maintaining your platform and understanding that at some point in time it can break down if you don't maintain it?
You know, there's 5 core fundamental pillars in developing a meditation practice. And in cultivating these, they're kind of the root of giving us that solid life, and no matter whatever happens. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what these are. So regulating the body basically is having the ability to pay attention to our skeletal alignment and our muscular tension so we can direct the energy in the body. And an example would be, think about a time maybe when you're sitting in front of your computer and you've been there for 3 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward and you're feeling lethargic, maybe your neck's getting sore. And another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, we're in 100% control of these 2 different energetic states all day, every day. And if we don't make a conscious decision to pay attention to that, a lot of times we can spend a lot of time in that depleted state. And so that's the first thing we want to think about when we start working with energy in the body. The second thing is the breath. And the breath is an extremely deep topic and something that if you take on the meditative arts, you'll be studying for the rest of your life. And, you know, in fact, in Qigong, they often refer to it as the science of the breath because there's so many different breathing strategies and ways that we can use the breath. Now, because of that, we kind of broadly categorize these breathing strategies into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditations that bring the energy inward. And an example of this would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so if we want to emulate that style of energy cultivation in our meditations, we can do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale. And this helps with reducing stress, dealing with anxiety, with panic attacks, with boosting our creativity. I mean, there's many reasons why we would do this side of the practice. Then we have the yang side of the practice. The yang side of the practice is more aggressive. It's kind of like if you've ever had to push your car or you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to use the exhale, put tension in the breath, maybe even make it audible. And this helps generate energy. And so as we start learning how to do this, now we can adjust our physical, mental, and emotional outcomes by regulating that energy with the breath. And in Chinese philosophy, they call this balancing the Kan and Li. And I'm sure you've probably heard the term, the monkey mind. People use that all the time when it comes to meditation. Well, when we have the breath as a strategy, now we have a banana to lead the monkey to make it behave how we want it to. And so the breath is an extremely powerful tool in that we can use it to adjust our emotional and mental outcomes. Now, everybody goes through the day with emotional ups and downs. Some people are like a roller coaster, others may be a little more balanced. But when you start learning how to use this strategy, now when you see yourself starting to get excited, we can use the yin side of the breath to bring us back down. And when we see ourselves starting to feel depleted, we can use the yang side of the breath to help bring us back up. And so it's a very powerful tool to have in the toolbox. And this is the second pillar. The third pillar is regulating the mind. And regulating the mind is an extremely deep topic as well. And, one of the most common things I'll hear people say when they come to the meditative practice is, I tried meditation before, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet my mind. And somewhere along the way, people got this misconception that in order to be successful with meditation, you have to reach this state of nirvana and be in a blissful place where nothing bothers you. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I've spent the last 36 years of my life traveling around the world, training with some amazing meditation practitioners. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We're human. It's just kind of the way of life. And so when we make this realization, now we understand that when we get distracted and we're doing our meditation practice, we recognize the distraction because of our heightened sensitivity as soon as it goes out of balance. And now we use our breath, our posture, our movement, if it's a movement practice, to bring us back to center. Now, if you do this 50 times during a session, you just got 50 repetitions of being out of balance and coming back to balance. You do this every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this sense of almost being unshakable, where if somebody says something to throw you off your game or you have a bad day at work, you have the tools now to approach it from a balanced standpoint and be centered rather than being, 10 minutes off in this distracted state where we respond maybe with a response that we're not proud of. And, there's this story that I really enjoy about these two older monks. And they're walking down this dirt road after a big rainstorm, and it's muddy everywhere. There's puddles all around. And they come up to this huge mud puddle. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl. And she's standing there in a white dress and she's crying. And the older monk, he yells across the puddle and says, "Hey, is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs, he walks across the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles down the road, and finally, the younger monk is just furious, and he says, we're not supposed to touch girls, but yet you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do we have to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we let something go? The meditative arts helps us recognize these distractions so we don't have to wait 2 miles down the road, we can make it change as soon as it happens. And so it's a very powerful asset, learning how to control the mind. The fourth regulation is regulating the energy. And this is also an extremely deep topic and something that we could talk about for hours. But a basic understanding of it is, with certain meditations, we circulate the energy in the body, we lead it inward, we extend it outward. And having a competent ability to regulate the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to circulate and lead that energy in the body. And then lastly, the fifth regulation is regulating the spirit, which is very profound and a deep idea. And it's something that, meditation practitioners and monks who meditate all the time will spend their entire life working towards this stage of enlightenment. But when we have a good understanding and we're cultivating these different 5 pillars or these 5 regulations, now you can see how this practice will affect anything you do in life and can be a foundation to keep us rooted and keep us centered in everything we do.
Once again, let's not refocus radio, talking to our guest today, Jeff Patterson. There's one thing I want to point out when you said earlier in the episode that you still, after all of this success with your business and all these years, you still see yourself as the student. And I think that is a key detail that I think we can zoom in on, because it's not just being consistent, but understanding that there's most likely more that we can learn. And when we make that room to say, let me ask more questions versus I think I know everything now and I can stop asking questions. How important is it for our listeners to understand, grasp that knowledge, whether it's in this practice or if it's just in their professional, personal life, that they don't stop asking questions, because being a student is actually a good position?
I think that's a great question. And there's a couple things I'd like to touch on with that. And one is, you have to have that inspiration and that desire to be a better person. And today, with YouTube and all the access to information that we have, a lot of times people, I think, get lazy in that they say, I don't need to learn that. I'm going to go just see it on YouTube when I need to. And things like the meditation arts, or meditative arts, or music, or painting, or any kind of an art form that you may do, you can't just go when you want to do it and look at a video and think that you're going to have any kind of depth in the practice. You've got to cultivate that time and that energy and really get to where we establish a deeper level of feeling. In music, if you're learning the guitar, you could learn the D chord the first day of practice, but you playing that chord on your first day is a lot different than a master on the guitar. He'll play that same chord and it'll sound like magic, and it's the same thing with the meditative arts, is that if you don't cultivate that and get that to a deep level of feeling, you're never going to reach a deep level of practice. And today, one of the biggest hurdles I see people have is they try to learn these things through apps or through videos. And then every time they go do their ritual practice, and even though they may be very disciplined and they're doing it every day, they're listening to an app. And they're called, the meditative arts are called the internal arts for a reason, in that it's not meant to be something where we're watching a video or listening to an audio. It's meant to be time where we listen internally, where we focus inside. And now I'm a believer in using video as a learning resource. And you can definitely learn some of these practices through watching a video if you have a guide pointing you in the right direction. But when you're doing your ritual practices, you need to shut those things off and spend that time with yourself. And that's where you're going to see the true value in the practice.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation, and I hope our listeners and our viewers appreciate the conversation as well. Once again, we've been talking about balancing body and mind, the Yielding Warrior's Guide to Meditative Practices, with our guest today, Jeff. I want people to go to the website. It's theyieldingwarrior.com. So, our listeners right now, if we had something we can give them or additional resources, what's some things that they can check out after this show?
Well, they can get a free copy of my book. They could get a physical copy if they just want to pay shipping and handling. That's at theyieldingwarrior.com/book. Or they could check out my 2-week trial on the website, The Yielding Warrior, and get introduced to some of these practices. Remember, the most important thing, if you're thinking about taking on this practice, whether it's with me or somebody else, is make the commitment to be consistent and do it daily. And if you can keep that up for a year, I guarantee you that it'll be one of the best things you've ever done for yourself, and you'll do it for the rest of your life. But you gotta do it for yourself. Nobody else can do the time for you. And you really got to get in there and find that why and that energy to make sure that when that alarm goes off, you have a reason to get up. And if you do that, you'll be stoked that you did, and it'll be one of the best things you've ever done.
That's awesome right there. So once again, talking to our guest today, Jeff Patterson. Go to his website, like you said moments ago, theyieldingwarrior.com. All the stuff will be in the show notes. But like we always say, man, thank you for your time.
Thank you.